I would love to sit here and talk initially about kind of the biggest thing for me, which is the Bo
Just
Nix injury.
gloat. Just do it. Just
No,
do it.
no. We're
At
going
least,
to
I mean,
get
it's the last week you could probably do it if we're being honest. But
stop. I actually think we're going to be okay. We'll get to that later. But the very first thing, we're recording this on a Monday, so this just happened. The Bills are going to fire McDermott. Beane, the GM, is actually going to get a promotion. He is now director of all of football operations, not just the general manager. This is hilarious because this is the same guy who has been overseeing this roster, by the way, helped shift the offense into more 12 personnel sets, but never adjusted the defense. So he knew the meta was flipping on the offensive side, but then he can't find a receiver. Now you can say Keon Coleman. Again, I always think if they couldn't separate in college, they're not going to be able to separate at the
in a
NFL
faster
level.
game.
Yes. So no receiver outside of Shakir. You have no beef inside. So he built a defense to beat the Chiefs and the Bengals, and then the meta flipped. So what say you, Felix?
I think it is the same situation, and I didn't realize it until like all the lower thirds on all the TV shows of like it's been 9 seasons in Buffalo. Like in this, it predates Josh by like a year or two. And like it's been different iterations of this team. Brian Daboll went off and got the head coaching job. Joe Brady came in, or excuse me, Ken Dorsey was their OC for a little bit. Then Joe Brady came in. We've seen different iterations of this defense. The same thing is true where they keep hitting their head. And sure, it is mostly the Kansas City Chiefs. Now we're realizing it's kind of the divisional round. It's kind of just the second round when whatever gets too hot, whether it's for Josh, whether it's for Sean McDermott, and obviously you make the decision between the head coach and the quarterback and moving off the head coach, and you kind of open up the door. And we're going to talk about all the different candidates that they have, including one guy that I just mentioned, actually 2 guys that I just mentioned. And so like it is just really interesting where like we're sitting here where, oh yeah, the Steelers was the best job for a day. Oh wait, the Ravens is the best job. Oh wait, give it a week. The Bills is the best job in football, or I mean, depending on how you feel about Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen, however you feel about that. And so I think it is really interesting. All these different candidates that we're going to talk about could go for either one of these jobs, but at the same time, based on where the Buffalo Bills are at, and you need to retool a couple of things on defense, I think the Bills is the best job in football right now.
Yeah, it's so funny because I was just thinking about this last night of just the Bills don't have that much to fix. I think that you can find a receiver, just make sure that you're not
DJ Moore might be on the market. Like we're going to talk about the Bears here in a little bit and what they need to do to retool their team. DJ Moore might be on the market. You've got some draft picks to move around.
Well, I mean, into the Stephon Diggs deal, you say whatever you want. As we go further on, it looks like the Bills probably did the best thing to get off of him. Even
again, it was a part of that iteration thing where it's like that's just like they had Stephon Diggs for 4 or 5 years or whatever it was, and then you moved on from him and you try to figure out things, and it just didn't work out, and it hasn't worked out in 9 years with the same coach. Now it's time to move on to the next era with a different coach and a new stadium.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting to me, though, is just that they've kind of tried to manufacture the big outside receiver. Amari Cooper didn't really work. People, he was great to have on the roster. I think the leadership ability
7 games
was, and I think people kind of understood, okay, your role here, but then you just never got the juice. Was the juice worth the squeeze? Because you didn't get anything out of it. And then Keon Coleman, I think everybody wanted him to be successful, but he's turning out to be very much like kind of like what we see in Carolina with Leggett, just like you were really productive at the college level, probably just because you were just physically better than most of the corners you went. Again, not a lot of separation for Keon Coleman at the college level, but just that physical aspect of it. I think a lot of people thought, okay, well, maybe he can be a Drake London. Maybe he can be like a DeAndre Hopkins and just kind of go up and be a red zone monster, maybe like a Devontae Adams. But we're seeing that that's just really not the case. I mean, he had a massive drop. Now, it would have been a penalty, but he had a massive drop in the red zone. I think that kind of culmination. But to me, again, I think it goes back to this is a defensive head coach that you can argue is doing what he was supposed to do with what he's given. They've picked up the corner blitzes at the back half of the season. They picked up a lot of the stunting in the back half of the season because he's trying to fix the light box. And I'm not talking about the structural defensive scheme of it. This is a super light defense up front. And their secondary, though, has been absolutely elite. So they still get sack production and pressure production off of this. This is not a blitz-heavy team. So it's like he's doing his job. I think the biggest argument that you could also, and this is kind of what we'll get into, is Joe Brady. A lot of people do not like the vanilla nature. It's basically he took the Sean Payton he took the Sean Payton playbook. He's kind of gone as far as he can with it, added a little bit of a 12 personnel sprinkle to it, a more spread-centric sprinkle to it for the Josh Allen being your quarterback. The early candidate, which I think is insane, and of course this comes out 5 minutes after it, so I mean, this is all really, but the fact that people are even bringing up Brian Daboll is absolutely insane to me.
Is it?
I get the tie of hey, look, he is the one that gave birth to the Josh Allen that we know, but I think that you go and you look to me, what this is the typical NFL reaction from a typical NFL owner. I had a very passive coach in McDermott. And by passive, I just mean he wasn't fiery. He wasn't out there rah-rah. Actually more of an intellectual defensive coach, which I think is what we're seeing as kind of.
He's from the Andy Reid coaching tree.
Right. Jim Johnson. So there's but he's not a Steve Spagnuolo blitz heavy, but he's basically a more pared down version of that. He's an intellectual defensive coach, which I think we're starting to really see in the NFL really works. It's that works. The Macdonald, the Staley, again, not a head coach, defensive coordinator, mentors in the same mold. I think Jonathan Gannon, again, defensive coordinator, not a head coach. I think that's going to be working as well. So it's very interesting that you want to go full 180 because some of the stories coming out of Brian Daboll, some of these guys get head coaching jobs and it's just they become absolute tyrants. And that's what it sounds like with him.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes you need a little bit of that if that's the thing you're coming off of, and I don't know. In what you're saying, offensively, they had the rushing champ. James Cook was phenomenal all year. Their offensive line has been really good all year. Haven't figured out receiver. They have Josh Allen. They should have been able to beat the Broncos, especially in that situation. We'll talk about their game here momentarily. But let's talk about the couple other head coaches that have been signed so far. And then we'll talk about some of the candidates that I'd want to talk that. Because of Harbaugh, he's got the Giants.
Yeah, let's put everything into perspective. Who's been signed right now, and then we'll go down. Other than Brian Daboll, we'll go down the other people that are kind of being tied to this job really early in the early days of this thing.
All right, my favorite one that I like is probably Stefanski to Atlanta. At least, obviously it's been too higher so far, but Stefanski to Atlanta so far. I think I might have called it during the pod, unless it might have just been whatever.
Let's just say you did. Go.
Yeah, I did it. Yeah, tell all your friends this is where all the predictions come from. Except for that, not my DraftKings account. But you see all the great weapons they have. Bijan Robinson is a top 2 or 3 back in the league. And then you see Drake London really come into his own, regardless of who was at playing quarterback, Michael Penix Jr. or Kirk Cousins or me. Drake London can play, and it's just we've talked about it multiple times over the course of the season. The NFC South is just kind of copy and mold of each other, and Raheem Morris never got the defense figured out, but they're keeping Jeff Ulbrich, the defensive coordinator. What say you with all of that situation, and what Stefanski's going to bring to that offense, but also why they're holding on to Ulbrich?
Yeah, so Stefanski, I think people forget, is a 2-time Coach of the Year winner, just
for sure, because
the NFL understands to win at Cleveland with that ownership and with he was dealt with a amazing roster.
I think even with Tomlin and Harbaugh on the market, he was still the best candidate. That was me.
I agree too. I think you have a young quarterback, clean it up. You have Kirk Cousins, who I think is Stefanski's probably hey, we can bridge this. We can get into this. There's not going to be a great quarterback in this class. if we want to kind of load up, if let's say something goes wrong with Cousins, he gets hurt. Cousins, I guess, is basically full on well suspecting not to be there next year. I think Stefanski probably argues that let's keep him one more year. We're already
I think that
paying him
changes the
anyway.
conversation for Kirk in particular.
Yeah, and I think he works perfectly in this system. This is a system now. You're not going to get a lot of the boot action stuff, but I think he works perfectly in this system. They got to figure out Penix, give him another person, give him an actual offensive coach instead of Raheem Morris to see if this works. And if it doesn't, then we'll move on and we'll figure it out. I don't think it's going to work. I'm in agreement with you. If you're listening, Felix is adamantly shaking his head. No, it's not going to work. I understand that I don't think it's going to work either. I think you're in quarterback purgatory again. He's trying to reshuffle, get Matt Ryan. He's trying to load up on to just figure out the offensive side. That leads me to Ulbrich. I think Ulbrich, a lot of people recognized the downgrading of the defense once Saleh left, but there is definitely a shift around the NFL with more of a wide nine, quarters heavy, cover one heavy influence on a lot of this stuff. I've talked about the Ravens tree guys with McDonald, Minter. Obviously, I think Zach Orr's going to get another opportunity somewhere. It will be really interesting because I don't think Harbaugh brings him with him to New York. We'll talk about this here in just a second, but I do think that there has been kind of a shift towards some of that. You have the Saleh boys with Houston, the 49ers defense. Look, it was an absolute collapse just because of the roster against the Seahawks. But what he's been able to do with that defensive roster, I mean, bottom of the barrel pressure rates, bottom of the barrel in blitz. So they're not even going to manufacture anything, but they've been able to really survive with a really, really young defensive roster. So I think Ulbrich, that brings me back to Ulbrich. Why Ulbrich? Well, when you're the head coach and you have to do a bunch of other things, he was also having to kind of wade through that whole mess with that. What was it? The last year Rodgers was there and all of that stuff. And you're a defensive coordinator. He called most of the defensive anyway. It's like Matt Burke with D'Amico. D'Amico Ryans gets a lot of the credit for the defense, but it's really Matt Burke that's calling it. Well, Saleh gets a lot of credit for the defense, but it was really Ulbrich. I thought Ulbrich instantly upgraded the pass rush in Atlanta. The coverage aspect, I think they can get figured out. They had a bunch of rookies playing in the back end, bunch of injuries. You got one guy really in AJ Terrell. I think you got good safety duo. So I think it's more or less like those guys know each other really well too. Sticking with that, I do agree with you. The quarterback is going to obviously be the ceiling. And it looks like another 9-8, 8-9 season, but there's hope if you can kind of get a couple of guys in correct places. Maybe Stefanski raises the bar a little bit on offense. Now we're looking at an 11-win season and not necessarily that 9-8.
Right. And remember, they do not have their first round pick that belongs to the Los Angeles Rams, currently 13th overall.
Yeah, see, it would have been nice this year. You probably could have been able to get either trade back. That's just not going to be the case this year, though. But it is what it is. You went and got both of your edge rushers last year. I think both of the young guys that you got are good. I think the kid in the secondary, the Watts kid in the secondary, is good. I think Billy Bowman will be fine. You have two decent corners, so I think the pieces are there. Ulbrich stabilizing probably can now run his scheme, so you're going to see more. Look, that's the other thing. Stefanski had Swartz. Swartz is a wide nine cover one guy. Ulbrich, to me, was a wide nine with a little mix of Morris wanted to run more 5 down front stuff, but I still think that you're going to see a very similar defense to what you saw with the Jets and what you're going to see with Atlanta this next year.
All right. John Harbaugh does not get the Michigan job. Kyle Whittingham does.
You wanted that.
I would have. Oh, that would have been awesome. It would have just been beautiful. To make the best out of a crappy situation. Excuse me. John Harbaugh goes to the New York Giants on a hell of a contract, brings Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator from the Baltimore Ravens, with him. You say that he's not going to bring Zach Orr with him, but what say you about Harbaugh to the Giants?
I think that he tried to pull a Liam Cohen, and so the owner, for whatever reason, does not want to fire Shane, the GM. So Harbaugh literally in his contract says he only only answers to the owner. He will not answer to the GM.
And he's earned that. I mean,
no,
I
100%.
bet Jim Harbaugh's got something real similar.
This is one of those weird oddities of like, why can't you just fire the GM? Like, you obviously structured the contract to where he's going to do this. I think if you're Shane, you're sitting here like, okay, well, like, have you seen my stapler? Like, it's like that. Like, hey, didn't we fire that guy? Yeah, but we're just leave him alone. Like, he'll figure it out. We stopped sending his paycheck. Like, it's like Office Space. Like, I just imagine this being Office Space.
And you're making a joke here, and I just got done rewatching The West Wing with Martin Sheen, and so much of the job of politics is perception. So much of this gig is public, and like, we saw you screw up. We saw you screw up in front of the world, and like continuously. We can't keep doing this. Like, it's incredible that
he's got to have something on the owner to where he can't fire him, or maybe they're like best friends. See, this is the thing that like fans, I think it gets really frustrated.
Like, who's he married to? That's like, what?
Yes, like there's a connection here that maybe I don't know because I just don't follow the Giants, but like the fact that guy still has his job. And Harbaugh clearly backed out of this contract, and then they put it in there. No, you will only answer to the owner. To me, like this looks like Shane's going to basically run the day-to-day operations in the front office, but Harbaugh is essentially going to tell the owner what he wants, and it's going to be like the owner has to talk to the GM. Hey, look. Bad organizations stay bad. Let's quickly wrap up. Let's pivot back to the Bills. Let's quickly wrap up. So the only real internal candidates that we've seen. So this is a good segue because we just talked about the Giants who just fired Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll may be back in as the Bills head coach. Internally, Joe Brady, we talked about it. I don't think that he has a lot of fan. Look, people can't. I can't figure him out
around as a candidate, as an OC though. Like seeing what he can do.
Yeah, to me, though, I think that it's one of those deals like Matt Rule kind of dogged him and was like, oh, he was fake. Like, I didn't think I liked him. But then it was Matt Rule. So people are like, well, he's kind of a psychopath anyway. Then he goes to the Bills and he kind of supersedes Ken Dorsey. Like, he kind of kicks Ken Dorsey out the door. And so people are like, oh, that was kind of, okay. They have some success, but then now people are like peeling back layers and they're like, well, it's actually just kind of like the skeleton of the Sean Payton system.
Tree. He's in that Sean Payton coaching tree. I'm just saying.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's interesting. What I think it will come down to is if it becomes Daboll or Brady, it's basically he just goes in. The owner goes in and is like, hey, Josh, who do you want to be your head coach? Who do you want? Do you want Daboll? Do you want Brady? Like, who do you want? And then I know Babbage will probably get it, but it's like, that's McDermott. Like, that's a weird deal. Like, yeah. So other names is Davis Webb from the Broncos, who again, Sean Payton tree. So the offense doesn't change that much. He's only 30. He worked, is this your next Sean McVay? He was a backup quarterback, much like Kevin O'Connell, right? He is. Look, I know this because I follow the Broncos a lot. He has basically been the go-between for Bo Nix and Sean Payton this entire year. I know that the Broncos front office and ownership loves Davis Webb. So to me, I think he's kind of a dark horse, somebody to keep an eye on. Mike McDaniel from the Dolphins would be really interesting. Somebody that already knows that conference, has some success, would bring something offensively to this, already has a really good run game. Clint Kubiak fits the mold of a 12 personnel team, movement-based offense. I think he would be interesting. Then Cliff Kingsbury, I don't know. He gets thrown around a lot. I don't know if I'd give him another head coaching job.
Yeah, it is kind of fun. And I mean, the way that it ended in Washington, like, I mean, again, I want to see a guy end with success. I want to see a guy kind of conclude with things going well. The thing with Davis Webb, yeah, McVay worked, but Lane Kiffin didn't. And I know Lane Kiffin's gone on to do other things, but like, he was also 30 and 31 or whatever it was 15 years ago with the Raiders. And then it kind of like, I know he's a former player, and like that does attract a lot of people to that because Vrabel's worked out, but also Gerard Mayo was a former player and has only worked for one organization. Kind of worries me just a smidge, not to rain on your parade. of assistant coaching for your team. But at the same time, these are different things. If he's going to be leaving your team and you're interviewing as a head coaching job, you do want to figure some things out. But well, there's one candidate out there that's kind of lost a little bit of love, but I think he had a pretty decent Sunday. Chris Shula. You mentioned it last week that just do it if you're Miami because of the last name, but are there? I mean, because there's 10 jobs. I mean, 10 jobs available at 1.8 now because it's Stefanski and Harbaugh, but 8 jobs out there now. Who else is out? I mean, Matt Nagy's getting interviews, and so like,
and then too, I'm glad you brought him up because the whole deal with bringing Bieniemy back, like they've already tried to get Bieniemy, they've already requested to get Bieniemy back. So it's like there's not a job opening there. You know how the NFL works. There's not a job opening there. So they fully think Nagy's going. So there's something they know that maybe we
Tennessee
don't
Titans
necessarily know.
He's the next Tennessee Titans head coach. He had, I mean, what else job out?
You know what, though? That fits absolutely perfect with that organization of just that, you know what?
The dumbest thing possible.
Like, go get Matt Nagy to completely destroy Cam Ward because he completely destroyed Mitch Trubisky. I mean,
he got Mitch Trubisky to the playoffs. Let me make Matt Nagy
in spite of Nagy. All right, let's break down the Bills-Broncos. I got my old school hat on today. We are going back to the championship. Thank you, Felix, for always supporting us this entire year through your painful year. I know you've been a Broncos fan at heart all year, so I really appreciate you. Couple notes I had watching this game back. The Bills had a lot of success with pin pull, basically down block, pulling 2 linemen, similar game plan to the Jaguars. That was always my fear. I know we talked about it the week after the Jaguars was like, hey, this is a signal. They had a lot of success. Lee and Coleman really found something. Overall, Denver is typically good at stopping gap schemes. But this is different. Pin pull to me is kind of needs to be separated out of gap schemes. All gap schemes means is that you're pulling a lineman. You're creating a gap somewhere else. That's why it's called gap. Not great versus duo. They're 20th overall. So I'm trying to build a base for when we get, because we're going to talk Broncos, we're going to talk Patriots, and we're going to talk game preview. So to me, I expect to see a ton of this. I expect to see a ton of pin pull. The Patriots have really leaned into like that 6th extra offensive lineman, getting in the gun, getting in an eye, not gun, getting away from the gun, getting an eye, running a lot of pin pull, running a lot of duo. I just see that really, that's right up the Patriots alley. That's where the signal is for me. So like, I like to look at these games, especially in the playoffs, like what have you done in these games that can signal for the next game? The Broncos, I thought offensively used motion 75% of their plays, which was the highest rate they've used all year. Sean Payton is not a motion offense guy. This is a guy that wants to get to he wants to get his long ass play call out there. He wants to get to the line of scrimmage and let Bo Nix do the brain Bo Nix stuff that, you know, basically Drew Brees did. That's why everybody's like, it's Bo Nix is Drew Brees with legs, right? So it really made the Bills be right in the coverage check. 78% of the plays with motion were passing, which that's always like, okay, these stats are great, coach. Like, but like, what's the signal there? Well, 75% of your plays had motion. Of those, 78, so almost 80% of those were passing plays. You're trying to mess with the coverage, and especially in those split field with those split field rotations, cornerback pressures, simulated pressures that we see from the Bills. They were really, really trying to make them work.
Yeah, that's cute and all, but as that ball was in the air, Brandon Cooks is coming down with it. It's tied 30-30. Like, as good as Denver's defense is, as bad as Buffalo's run defense is, as bad as Josh Allen was that day, and as great as he had been in some parts of that day, and it did come down to, like, I mean, it came down to a turnover. Like, it was just such a 50-50 play, and I want your opinion on that here in just a second. But it is the playoffs. That's just what it comes down to, and Bo Nix was able to make a play with a broken ankle. And they were able to kick a field goal, and it was just a 50-50 play and a 50-50 ball. And like, yeah, the nitty gritty, like, it was actually like a very good football game with a lot of points, and it was good defense played throughout it at the same time, which is, to me, the perfect football game because you get points and like, it's just perfect. But at the same time, it just came down to, this guy came down with the football.
Yeah, that
happened that way.
Look, and here's the other thing too, though. Like, this is why even when I was coaching, I never blamed the refs. Like, I always, when we went in, I would always have.
That's such a tough look as a final, and we're just to circle back to the Brian McDermott, Sean McDermott conversation, real quick. Is like, that's such a tough look as your final. You're the last look as the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. I'm standing up for Buffalo, damn it. Yeah, get the hell out.
Well, I think here's the problem is that, okay, that pass, he rolls over, he comes up with it. You can't really prove, like, a lot of people want to take screenshots. That looks great. You can take a screenshot right when he has possession of it. Mm-hmm. The problem with it is that if you look at it in full speed, there is no way you could tell that he has possession of it. The DB is the one that comes up with the ball at the end of the day. One of the things, like we always talk about, the great, what is a catch in the NFL? The final part and the final piece of that is
the Des Bryant tweet. What's Des Bryant doing?
Yeah. But the final part of this is you have to complete the catch when you hit the ground. He did not complete the catch. He didn't grow. But here's the thing. I go back to this. I never blame the refs because there's always plays prior to that one play that could have won or lost you the game. No one's sitting here talking about the blatant holding call in the end zone that could have ended the game with a safety. Let's end the game on a safety. The NFL ain't going to do that. And so I think, like, we could go back to that. The Bills, then what do you want to do? Like, we're talking about the Bills losing a game with a safety and not even having a shot. So I think, like, look, these refs these refs have one of the most difficult jobs in the world. They have to do this in split seconds. Most of the time they get it right. I'm not going to blame the refs here. Obviously, I know I'm biased. I'm on the Broncos side of things, but I did think, here's the other thing that I'll
Broncos
mark.
And the defensive backside. You're just going to.
Yeah. I'm kind of double whammy there. So everybody's rolling their eyes. That's fine. Denver held Allen to 0 completions on 6 attempts with 2 interceptions on passes over 20 yards. So you can go back and look at that play all you want. Bo Nix was able to complete passes of 20 yards. Allen was not able to. The Broncos consistently attacked the B gaps. The Bills didn't. The Bills were able to run the ball. The defense. Look, I think the signal here, and I'll go back to it, and we'll talk more about this as we get in there. But the pin pole duo, those things really matter as we go on. Let's pivot to the Texans versus the Patriots. I feel bad for the Texans defense, and I have been that guy. I'll never forget, it's got to be my sophomore year in college. We were playing defense, and it was like we were holding teams to like 10 points a game, but we were only scoring like a field goal. So it'd be like, it looked like freaking like the 1990s football. And when you do that, eventually the defense
played the big red machine.
Yeah, this was just bad. Stroud to me was awful, but to his defense,
it's been 3 years, right?
Yes, it has. And all in the playoffs. Somebody was like, he's thrown like 7 interceptions.
I'm not even just saying the playoffs. Like, at least they've gotten to the playoffs. Let's just call the playoffs a wash. Let's say he's played 5 playoff games. The first one doesn't count. Got blown out by the Ravens or whatever. They beat the Browns. I'll call the playoffs a wash. He's been bad in the regular season too.
Yeah, the past 2 years for sure. Yeah, he had the one rookie year. He was like a one. You know what he is? He's a one-hit wonder at this point. They're going to have to make a big.
Pay him.
They can't. Yeah, they're going to have to make a big decision. And I think the problem is this defensive roster. It's going to be the same problem that the Browns have, but you're going to have a higher ceiling on offense. So you're going to be stuck in quarterback purgatory. I will say this. I think there are enough quarterbacks next season, but are you going to bring one in, or do you use CJ Stroud as trade bait? Like, you have one season to figure this out. And then I think you're going to have to move on. Do not get tied to his rookie year and say, we're going to save him and we're going to bring him back.
It's just, it's been years at this point. The majority of his rookie contract, he's been bad.
Yeah.
Like, downright bad or hurt.
Well, and I think so. The indictment on this, like, look, here's the thing. You got to go get offensive linemen. You got to fix the offensive line because you have to. Here's what's going to have to happen. The defense
got to a Super Bowl without an offensive line. I don't care.
Well, here's my point.
And he's been in the playoffs.
Yes, but this is my point: is that the defense is not going to change. You're going to have an elite defense. Again, none of those guys are going anywhere. You probably need to add an interior defensive lineman. You can probably find that in the draft. You can find that in the free agency. You can do that for cheap. I think you can find that. So I'm not worried about that. Mm-hmm. Offensively, you have to rebuild that offensive line. You either have to draft the first pick that you get, you have to draft an offensive lineman. You have to try and rebuild it, because the whole point of this is the year. In 2026, we have to figure out if CJ Stroud is going to get a 5th-year contract option or not. Because if we build everything around him, Nico Collins stays healthy. I like their 2 receivers that they've got opposite Nico Collins. They're just not number ones, and you saw that against the Patriots. What the Patriots did is they said, we're going to sit in the middle of the field open. They played it almost 60% of the time, when in regular, the split field rates for the regular season was 47. So they went up over 10%. They had this, I just think they were basically playing to them too. Like anytime they go 3-by-1, they'd go weak rotation, because they knew it was either going to be a weak side run or it was going to be some sort of play action. They were going to bring guys across. We're just going to drop the guy opposite what you had. Any 2-by-2, we're going to go split field. We're going to make you play spread football. 2-by-2 kept them solid against all the crossing routes as well. They essentially said, we're not going to let you throw the ball. We're going to stop you with our run. They had 5 sacks. They went after, what I thought was really interesting is they went after Christian Gonzalez. He had 16 targets. He's supposed to be a number 1 corner. He's another guy too that people want to be elite, and I just don't know if he's elite. People are like, oh, he's on the cusp of being all pro. And it's like, yeah, but I'm seeing
where would he rank in the Texans secondary?
My question to you is, would he start over Kamari Lassiter? I don't think he does. And you're not putting him in the slot because you're not beating Jalen Petrie out. That dude he's Honey Badger 2.0.
I was like, why are you asking me? You answer.
I know, hypothetically, rhetorically, I'm talking to you through this. But so I think the Patriots took full advantage of Nico Collins being out. Stroud threw into tight windows all games, and it did not work for him.
Yeah, and 4 picks. I don't. We saw Justin Herbert this year. He threw 4 picks against the. Wait, did he? Whatever. He hasn't been good in the playoffs. Period. And I think once you have that bad of a performance in the playoffs, particular, and maybe Trevor Lawrence, he threw 4 picks in the first half, and then they came back. But if you don't come back from a performance like that, and they had a couple of chances, it was within striking distance because that defense held it so tight, and against Drake May, who's been phenomenal all year long, and still it's such a at this point, if you had to make the decision today, you cannot pay CJ Stroud, and then you're at another crossroads, and you're exactly where you were 4 years ago as a franchise.
We talk about it all the time. You're
the Houston Texans.
Yep.
You have a great defense. Can't figure out quarterback.
Can't figure the offensive line out. You mentioned it. I mean, you've mentioned it multiple times earlier on there. You got rid of Laramie Tunsil. You got rid of the left tackle. Whatever you want to say. I think wasn't he even a team captain? You've been elected team captain. You kind of turned the corner a little mature wise, you think, and then
yeah,
you get rid of him. All right, this is what you came to listen to. Not just us rant about CJ Stroud and quarterback purgatory. Here's the game preview that I wrote up for the Patriots versus the Broncos. So when the Patriots offense is on the ball, when they've got the ball, look, they are a man-blocking duo team. So man-blocking duo just means you're going to get your doubles and you're working up to second. You're trying to delete the point. You're trying to get a vertical push. That's not great for the Broncos. The Broncos want you to run outside of them. They are a fast defense.
Buffalo was able to get it. When Buffalo was able to reset the line of scrimmage, they were able to get a really nice push.
Cook had over 100 yards rushing.
Yeah.
I think the Jaguars game is another one that you look at. You're like, okay, I think we can do something here. The biggest problem, though, that you're going to find against this Broncos team is what everybody talks about, which is the edges. New England's offensive line is 24th in adjusted sack rate. Hunter and Anderson in this last game, who is probably the number 1 duo in edges. Broncos are probably, if not number 2, they're definitely top 3. They had 5 sacks. So New England is the number 1 deep passing team in the NFL. They will go against the number 2 deep passing team. So this is going to be a game. much like we talked about with the Chargers Patriots, it's going to be an ugly game for the Patriots. They are going to have to get 12, 13, 14-yard drives. They're going to have to run with those extra linemen, get in the I formation, force the Broncos to stop the run. You're going to have to hit your tight ends and attack those linebackers and pass coverage. Here's the other thing. May has been the number one scrambling quarterback in the NFL this year. The Broncos see scrambles more than anybody else because of the pressure. They're also top 10 against scrambling quarterbacks. So that's like a strength on a strength. This does not signal. And look, we will get there because we're going to talk about the Broncos offense. We will get there. But this does not look like a great matchup. This is going to be a Stephon Diggs game too. The Broncos are 18th in DVOA against number 3 receivers, which is basically the slot. Diggs is going to have to step up.
Well, and I'll ask you this, and not to fully disagree with you, but wouldn't this be the game plan going into last week? Like, it was supposed to be a lower scoring game, going to need some longer drives, and then we ended up in a 33-30 overtime game, and it ended up being that way. And Drake May's more in the Josh Allen ilk, if you will, and there were moments in that game, and maybe Drake May, because he's more efficient, and he's not going to turn the ball over as much. I mean, maybe he is, because we see in these playoffs he turns the ball over a fair amount.
Right.
But throughout the regular season, he didn't. And maybe he just flips that back on for at least a game against the Broncos, because he knows he can't. And we saw what happened against Josh last week, and that was the one thing that killed them. And so, is that what's the likelihood of like your game script versus kind of the thing that I just described, which is just what we just saw happen against the Buffalo Bills last week?
Well, I think the big thing, the Bills try to push the ball down the field, and they ended up getting burned in it. Now we've already talked about the one catch, but I thought that the Broncos again proved, do not throw deep on us. So I think that the Patriots are going to have to go in, kind of roll back the clock, those old Patriots days. I actually think –
and I think Josh McDaniels weighs heavily on the games like this, and for the exact thing you're saying of like, hey, these old Patriot days of like, sure, we've been the best team going downfield, at least so far this year and like in the regular season, whatever. But because Josh McDaniels has been like, hey, we've been around here before. We've been in 15 million AFC championship games against a good
What
Broncos
is it, like they're
defense.
16th? I saw on Next Gen, it's like they're 16th or something. Like,
I don't want to talk. We were coming after it one of these days.
It's so stupid. It's so stupid. I do agree. Like, I think that there is something to be said. I think the Patriots will be able to move the ball a little bit, but I think you're looking at, they're going to have to really lean into a couple of things, and they're going to have to execute. If they don't execute, I think that it's going to be a low scoring game. Now, the reason why I think it's going to be a low scoring game, look, Bo Nix is out, freak ankle injury deal.
Third to last play of the game.
Yes, Jarrett Stidham will be the quarterback. Here's the thing about Jarrett Stidham. He has been around the system forever. If there is a backup quarterback in the NFL that you want, I think it's going to be a lot like with Davis Mills for the Texans, keeping them surviving.
Yeah.
This is not a Patriots defense that is overwhelming. So you have the number one offensive line in pass protection. You have the 24th best team in sacks. He's going to have a clean pocket. He's going to be kept clean by Sean Payton, who I think is going to run right at this Patriots defense. I think wide zone will be important. They're going to attack the edges of this Patriots. They're great against it. You don't want to run on the inside. Milton Williams, Barrymore, you don't want to run right at them. I think that this is an average running team. But Peyton does not abandon the run. And I think that's the most important thing. I think you hit him with wide zone. I think you hit him with inside zone. I think they have similar game plan to what as the Bills, means I'm going to run the ball versus two high shells, use motion to force the Patriots to communicate, because they do. They're another zone team. I know everybody thinks they run a lot of man. They really don't run that much man. They ran a bunch against the Texans just because they could see that Stroud was really look, there was blood in the water, and none of the receivers were getting any separation. I think this is a different Broncos team. I think it's a better offense than the Houston Texans. Attack single high vertically when you have the shots. Look, the Patriots are, and this is wild, and this is why I think, look, I go back to the Christian Gonzalez getting attacked 16 times. The Patriots are the 31st team against the number one receiver in DVOA. Cortland Sutton game incoming. Be ready for it. He needs to catch the ball. He's struggled a bit with the Bills. But that's got that. So that wraps up our AFC. I like the Broncos in this game. I know I'm a Broncos fan. I know everybody's going to be rolling their eyes at me, especially if you are a New England fan. But I do think the defense carries. I think Stidham is going to be a stabilizing force. We're not going to ask him to do too much. I think that if there's a team, you beat the team that you needed to beat. And I think that they can beat the Patriots.
Yeah, 24-20 Patriots. Anywho, sorry about that. Let's go to the other conference. 49ers got dog walked.
Yeah, we don't need to spend much time on this game other than that attrition. I put it in the notes. Attrition finally caught up with the 49ers.
Yeah, it was just one of those things. And like, you're playing a team for the third time. You're as injured as you are. Fred Warner was like, "Come on, one more. Give me one more, and then I can come back next week." And it's like, no, we're not doing this. And it was just, it was kind of interesting to see that the Seahawks were able to shut down CMC. And CMC is probably the best all-around offensive player in football, in my opinion. All right, Rams-Bears, which ended 20-17, but it felt like the Bears were moving the football a lot more, and they ended up winning time of possession, all that good stuff. But Caleb Williams with that throw, and you said it was just insane. Oh, nice throw, cool. That might be the best throw of all. And I know I might be a little bit hyperbolic because I love Caleb Williams, but dude, like, is there a better throw you've ever seen?
Yeah. So when the commentators go quiet, and we're talking like Troy Aikman's a Hall of Fame guy, like he's been around, he's seen some freaky things.
The Hall of Famers Troy Aikman's been around.
Yeah. And he was like, he didn't say anything. Then they pan over to Sean McVay, and he's like, what the hell just happened? Like, he's like literally looking around. His eyes are, he's always locked in, but his eyes were even like, they were like saucers. He's looking around like, what the hell just happened? I put on Twitter, I literally put the spot where he was. I took the all 22. I put the spot where the ball was on the 14. He launched that ball from the 4D. From the 40, and then hit
it. 7 yards into the end zone, too.
Yeah, it hit it. It was like a 45-yard throw.
Go for it, too.
Going backwards. Even me, I was like, my wife and I are sitting there watching it, and I look at her. Her jaw is literally on the floor, and she's just like, what the hell just happened? But
I think it's really interesting. Just a quick note, and then we can actually talk about this game. Just real quick. Everybody's saying that, like, oh, there's only like 4 quarterbacks in the world that could ever do this. Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, Caleb Williams, and like Jamarcus Russell. I was like, hold on. Patrick Mahomes did this like in his sleep in 2018. We can do that. We can talk about that when he gets back next year.
You see why the comp for him is always going to be, he's always going to be compared to Mahomes. Always going to be. I think he runs better than Mahomes, but he's
just fast.
Yes.
He's so fast. Like, I think he's more like Kyler, but he's a little bit bigger than Kyler, but he's like a little bit smaller than Josh and tremendously smaller than Jamarcus Russell. But like, he's like all of our favorite quarterbacks to watch in one, but like, yeah, he's not going to complete a dump out. It's just not going to happen.
No.
It's just not going to happen.
He's got a little Baker Mayfield in him where he'll just throw a heater.
He's going to miss a slant 5 yards behind the receiver. It's fine.
Yes. Like, it'll be like, whoa, dude, like, calm down, through a wild pitch. And which, again, this is the typical Caleb Williams game. Like, to me, I thought this was like, if there was a Caleb Williams game, this is it. Mm-hmm. He barely completes 50%. In fact, he's below 50% for much of the game until the very end of the game when he put it all together and got over the 50% completion rate. He has 2 TDs, but he has 3.
That'd be awesome if it was with that last pass.
Yeah, well, look, it's just, you have the insane throw, which he is going to have in every single game. He's going to have a throw where you're just like, well, what the hell? There's only one guy that can make that throw. Other than Mahomes, it's him. He makes that throw. It's insane. Maybe the best ever. People that I respect are like, that might be the craziest throw that I've ever seen. But the problem is that you have at the end of the game, he throws a pick, and it's just like, and that pick was not a great pick. Like, it was not, kind of lobs it out, gives time for the post safety. It was cover 3. It was what you typically see. They locked the one side. They played zone to the other. The post safety sitting in the middle of the field. They run a dagger concept. People are blaming the receiver because he didn't bend back to the ball. But at the end of the day, he kind of threw it up. because here's the deal. He saw the post safety in the middle of the field, and he's thinking Moore's going to continue running. He's not necessarily thinking that the safety is going to be able to nail down on this throw, which the safety was able to. So he just threw to space and threw away from the post safety. The post, look, I know, and I am a defensive guy, but you have to give defensive guys credit when credit is due. Like, the guy made a really good play. So as freaky as Caleb Williams is, you have to then give that when there's freaks on the defensive side too. That play was a hell of a play. Caleb probably underthrew, lofted the ball up a little bit more. It was an insane throw. But it was not a great throw, and he ends up throwing a pick, and that's the end of the game.
Well, and I think particularly for Caleb, look at where he was at the beginning of the season, where like they could barely get the snap off without a penalty. And so like seeing how much he's developed throughout the whole season, all right, an entire offseason with Ben Johnson, and like I think it's a gigantic, incredible lesson to learn. Get ready to cut this and put it on the tweeters. But it's a great lesson to learn for young football players, I think, in particular, because you see it in the entire game. The only thing that really lost you the game is that the Rams were just cleaner than us. Mm-hmm. And in particular, you turned the ball over, and our defense played the best game it possibly could have against the best offense in football. And the only thing that lost us the game was that we were just dirtier. And whether it be penalties, whether it be whatever it was, the Rams were just cleaner than us that day. And it came down, and because you're the quarterback, it came down to your interceptions.
Well, and I thought Dennis Allen the past 2 weeks has done a masterful job. Like, he basically made that pivot in the second half to just go after the edges and attack with DB pressures. So he comes out against the Rams knowing that they want to run 12 and 13 personnel. If you go back and look at it, the Rams got out of 12 personnel altogether. Mm-hmm. They only ran, like, of their 77 snaps, they only ran 10%. I mean, this is a team that's been running 50, 60% of their entire offense out of 12%. And what he was doing is basically like, anytime you go condensed and you go big, we're going to blitz the edge, and you're not going to be able to defend that because you can't block that. Mm-hmm. And so what it ended up doing is McVay had to go, okay, well, we got to go spread. The problem with going spread is that the Bears, if there's one good thing about the Bears, when they're healthy, they got CJ Gardner-Johnson, they got Kyler Gordon back, they have two really good safety. Byard is an all-pro this year. Brisker probably should have been an all-pro. That guy's a freak too. Jalen Johnson is a former all-pro.
From KU that can play. I can't even think of his name. The rookie. I'm sorry about that. His name is Austin.
Sorry, he had brain fart going back to Kansas. If you didn't know, Felix is from Kansas, so everything has to tie back to Kansas.
Austin Booker.
Yeah, yes. But you have a secondary that's playing very, very well, is very deep now, and they were just not able to take advantage of it. They got them in predictable situations where they could play some man, and then I think you can actually play some man against the Rams. You have to be very, very spot specific, but that's where they were able to. So Stafford focused on quick underneath throws. If you go look at his passing chart, everything's really quick. Everything's in the intermediate. There's no completions over 20 yards. They weren't able to get any explosive plays. The Rams defense tried to live in split field against the Bears to try and, hey, can we live in base and split field to limit their run? So I thought it was just a really clean game. Rams safety Cam Curl had a hell of a game. So the DBs came to play in this game. That was really the story. And I look what the Bears did to the Rams. Mike Macdonald is looking there, coming off of a game where they did not blitz at all because they just basically said, we think that we can beat the 49ers straight up, especially after the first couple drives. They're like, oh, okay, well, we're just going to play defense and not give anything to the Rams. We're not going to unload the clip. I thought McVay was trying to get Dennis Allen to unload the clip. The problem was he knew it every time he'd go condensed, he was going to get blitzed. So what does that mean? You got to go spread. I thought it played right into him.
Yeah. And that leads us directly into the NFC Championship preview of, like, can Sam Darnold make one play to tie the game back up like Caleb did? And it's kind of interesting, before the 49ers Seahawks game and before the 49ers got dog walked, everything between them was really, really close because in both games, the 49ers had won one and lost one. They only allowed 13 points. And the 49ers defense had been very good. One at the beginning of the season when they were fully healthy, one at the end of the season when they weren't. And then going into this game, it's basically the same exact thing. It came down to that wonky 2-point conversion and another one. in that Thursday night game a few weeks ago for the Seahawks to win and eventually become the 1 seed, and that's why this game is in Seattle. But if this is a very similar matchup to what we just saw, can Sam Darnold make that one play to just pull them back in? And if Stafford can play well against that type of defense, even though the Seahawks are better, how do you see this coming out for this? Is the matchup really Seattle's defense, or excuse me, Seattle's offense versus Seattle's defense? Or
it is. It's the number 1 DVOA offense versus the number 1 DVOA defense. And it's going to come down to, can an elite quarterback and an elite offense beat the most elite defense in the NFL?
Mm-hmm.
And I think if there are some signals, LA is the number 1 outside zone team. Seattle has stopped to build that. They're going to have to pivot back to doing more duo and gap scheme, which they kind of went through. They kind of went through this phase, and really they've really tried this year to run more gap scheme, more duo, more downhill schemes. This has been a trend. So this is a trend that McVay's had. I think it continues. The problem with running outside against the Seahawks is they want to live in a 2-high shell. They want to play a ton of cover 2. Their corners can tackle. And so you're not blocking the corner in wide zone, and then he's making the tackle. And they don't play a lot of man like the Texans. They're not going to play a lot of man, or not like Texans, like the Bears, where you're going to be able to suck a guy in and you're going to be able to kind of scoot one out. That's not what's going to happen. They're going to sit outside. They're going to wait for everything outside. So you almost have to fold everything in. You have to really attack that middle. I think too, if you get into another situation where you get in a spread matchup, I think you're going to lose. They want you to get into spread. You're going to have to find ways to live in 12 and 13 personnel.
Don't get into a track meet.
Yeah, don't. You don't want to do that. And you also don't look. Here's the other thing. Seattle's not going to blitz at the same rate that the Bears did, but they're going to do it in timely fashion. They're going to do a lot of the same things that Dennis Allen did. Blitz off the edge, blitz the nickel. They're going to do a lot of things like that. I think you attack the interior. They run a cover 2 with a wide 9 front, so everything's out wide. I just mentioned that. Tight ends have been a problem for the Seahawks. They're 16th in DVOA. So, I know when you're the number 1 defense in efficiency, it's really hard to find this. But if there is one, it's tight ends. You need to leverage play action early in downs. That's the signal. You need a pass early in the down. Do not sit there and bang your head against the wall. I think that's going to be, if you can keep Stafford clean, I think he can kind of, pick his spots, but do not look for these explosive downfield shots.
All right. What's your Super Bowl look like?
Look, I think we get a mirror offensively from both sides. I think Seattle is another one. They want to run a lot of 12 and 13 personnel. The Rams want to live in dime. They want to live in 5-man fronts. They want to live with it. They want Cam Curl near the box. Darnold needs to be able to take advantage of it in the intermediate, much like Stafford's going to have to take advantage of it. Instead of, they're the opposite though. Seahawks need to pivot to more outside zone, run right at the edges, whereas the Rams need to pivot to more inside hitting things. Shula disguised everything and made Darnold hold on the ball, had that 4 interception game in November. He should know what's coming. So to me, I think this is going to be really, really close. I forgot about that because Darnold wasn't very good in that second game. He just got good as that game went on. But even that weird 2-point conversion, I'm not going to count on a thing like that to get them back into the game or keep them in the game. And so throwing 4 interceptions, I think he had another 2 in the second game. Playing them for a third time, does that number get to 8 picks in 3 meetings against the same team? I think the better quarterback wins this game, and I think everybody agrees that that's Matthew Stafford. I think it's going to be super close. I think it's going to be a little bit higher scoring than people want to give credit to. I don't think, because look, the weather's going to be good. That
last game was 38-37, wasn't it?
I think it'll be a little bit lower scoring than that. I would expect a 31-28 game. I think it'll be higher scoring than the Broncos game. I think Sean Payton's just going to be let's get to the Super Bowl. And the Patriots are going to be we're going to just try and grind you out. We're not going to do anything that gets us we're not going to do anything deviate out of the norm. So it's going to be a 17-14 game. It's going to be really low scoring. I think this is going to be a higher scoring game, but I think it comes down to Stafford being able to make a play. I think Darnold is going to consistent, because this is the deal. I mean, I'm in the same boat as everybody else. Darnold is going to have to prove that he is not Sam Darnold. that everybody thinks is going to find a way to make a mistake, going to find a way to throw a pick. It's a big game. Don't give me the 49ers game. Look, that's not a 49ers team that they even played a couple weeks ago.
They were up 17-0 at the end of the first. He didn't really have to do anything.
Well, and I think the 49ers shot their shot.
He scored a touchdown on the opening play.
Yeah.
Like, it was
you kind of knew the momentum was there. I think the 49ers got punched in the mouth and they were like, yeah, we're looking around like, bro, this is like the they
beat the Eagles last week in a tough game, and they were playing a rested team. Like, that was just bound to happen.
Yeah. I think like we said, I think it was a game of attrition. I look for this to be a close game, and I think it's going to be the Broncos and the Rams in the Super Bowl. I know you got the Patriots. Who do you got in the Rams Seahawks game?
I think you're right. Better quarterback wins the game with Matthew Stafford, and just off the simple fact of like you have, and I've said this for a couple years now, you have like the same base of the team, in particular just the quarterback at this point, Matthew Stafford, and the head coach Sean McVay, of who won the Super Bowl a couple years ago. But you also have a young defense, a Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, different guys who haven't won championships yet, who have still veteran experience, but also some youth that still have that hunger. So I think they have that really nice combination of veteran leadership and youth and hunger to go and try and win that Super Bowl. Like, we know how to get here, and we know we have the energy to get there. Let's go.
Yeah, and I think the one X factor, and we'll leave you with this. The one X factor to me in this game is going to be Jaxon Smith-Njigba. We haven't mentioned him yet, but his matchup and him being able to win, look, the offense goes through him. He has the biggest target share.
Do not put Emmanuel Forbes on him.
They're gonna look, and they're gonna move him around, and they're gonna find a way. Look, the Rams play a lot of zone. I don't think you're gonna see a lot of man-to-man. So it's kind of one of those misnomers. But I do think like where they're going to definitely rotate coverage his way, much like Seattle rotated their coverage to CMC in the backfield. I think you're going to see the same thing. Backstops away from him if he's running crossing routes, if he's outside, how can we get the zone double? I think all of those mechanisms are going to be in play. I think he'll be the deciding factor. If he goes off, I think the Seattle Seahawks win. If he's kind of kept in check. So, and that even means like, look, he could have 100 yards receiving, but if he doesn't have a touchdown, or he's there, it's 5 catches.
He's that type of player now, isn't he? He can have 100 yards, but as long as
he's a Justin Jefferson at this point, right? Like, okay, he's going to get his 100 yards, but if he doesn't score a touchdown, I don't think.
We talked about Julio that way.
Yeah,
we talked about Julio that way for like 7 years.
Yeah, but I think like that's going to be the case. Is like Kenneth Murray just went off, but is he going to have a Kenneth Murray game where he doesn't have any kind of rushing? You mentioned it in our notes too. Charbonnet is hindered, so it's all on Kenneth Walker right now. He's going to have to show up. He's going to have to do it. We know he can be boom or bust. If he busts, I think it's going to be really difficult because you don't want Sam Darnold in a drop back passing game versus Matthew Stafford, and that's going to be the key.
I think this could be the game where Chris Shula is like, all right, I want a head coaching job. Finally, somebody just give me, there's 10 of them out here. Give me one.
Oh, I think I'll be honest with you. I think if the Rams win and the defense plays really well for the Rams, if I'm Miami, I just go ahead and offer them the job. Do it.
Boom.
All right. Thanks for joining Felix and I. Again, we will have, if you're sitting here and you're like, I waited all the way to the end, where's the national championship preview? Look, man, this comes out on Wednesday. The championship game we'll have that next week. I'll have a full breakdown of that game. So thank you for joining us again.
Go Hoosiers. This is off the sake of maybe I look stupid by Wednesday, but
yeah. Hey, look, I like the Hoosiers
or
too,
just throw it up.
We could all be eating our words when we come back on. But again, make sure you're giving us a follow on whatever you listen to, whether it's Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. Make sure to go give us a follow on that. Again, like I say all the time, half of you guys are listening on the browser. We love it because you're match quarters fiends. But make sure, again, give us a follow and on wherever you podcast. Thanks for again, and go watch some football. It's almost over, so go watch it. Other people that are out there that I think would be really interesting would be Mike McDaniel, right? I think Mike McDaniel coming there would be really interesting. Hold on. Okay, we good?
Yeah.
All right, make sure we get this out.